Hi, this is Katerina from katerinaandrade.com, and today I'm interviewing Anne Pao as part of my interview series, Breakdowns and Breakthroughs, Going from Burned Out to Lit Up in Work, Health, and Life. Hi, Anne.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
Thanks so much for joining us and making time today. I know you're at work. I'm glad you were able to find a room to hide out in for this interview.
Yeah, hopefully they don't come find me.
If they do, it's all good. We'll be witnessing everything and enjoying it.
Okay, great.
So, Anne is CEO and co founder of Weaverlution, which is a community engagement platform that empowers businesses, nonprofit organizations, and individuals to coordinate and collaborate around social impact projects. She also acts as head of analytics at Quark, one of the largest digital marketing agencies in Africa, which is where she's seated right now. Anne's fascinated with how people engage in meaningful, relevant ways with their community and how technology can be a catalytic force for social change. She earned her MBA with distinction from the UCT Graduate School of Business, and she focused on social innovation, entrepreneurship, and emerging markets. She's also studied at ESADE Business School and has a BA in both economics and international development from UCLA. So you've been studying on three continents.
Yeah.
And Anne has also served as a board member in multiple nonprofits across Africa. And in 2011, she joined the Clinton Health Access Initiative in Swaziland, which is where our paths first crossed. She stays busy competing in half marathons and triathlons and is a passionate supporter of youth, women, and entrepreneurs. Thanks again, Anne, for joining today.
Sure. Thanks, Katerina.
So, Anne, as you know, obviously, this interview series that I'm doing is focused on burnout and raising awareness about burnout, and
Yep.
also about some of the things that we can do to prevent or pull back from burnout. And so I just wanted to ask you, because everybody experiences burnout so differently, to describe what your experience was like.
Yeah, so generally I am a person with quite a lot of energy who keeps quite busy. At MBA and actually here at Quirk, people call me the Energizer Bunny because I'm always running around doing things. But burnout was the complete opposite of that. I was exhausted, and probably the most noticeable difference for me was I lacked inspiration and I lacked passion. I didn't want to do anything. Things that had normally inspired me to work heavy overtime and put in lots of hours, I suddenly literally just couldn't get myself to motivate, which is very unlike me.
And at the time, were you aware that it was burnout that was going down, or were you just, thinking, I'm tired, I just need to sleep, or what was kind of your perception of what was
Yeah,
going on?
I didn't know that there was actually a term for it. I just noticed that I just thought I was being a bit lazy. Like I was like, oh, why am I being so lazy? What's wrong with me? And actually, I think that's how we first started chatting about burnout was I read your article and I literally said, oh my God, I identify with every single thing in this article. That's what this is. It described it to a T. So until I really saw it in front of me, I didn't think I was burning out. I just thought maybe I was tired and needed to rest or was going through a hard push and that I'd get out of it. But the thing was, I didn't get out of it. It lasted for a really long time.
Can you give me a sense of about how long that was for you?
Gosh, I mean, I think, it's funny. It's almost like when you get sick after you kind of finish something really hard. We launched Weaverlution early November 2014. And then probably around mid-December, I started to experience it. So I think I got through the big push and then kind of let myself come down a bit. And then a lot of other stressful things were happening at the same time. And I think it lasted for a solid 3 or 4 months. Um, yeah, at least. And I actually, even today, I still have not been able to re-engage at the level that I was, which I think was more of a conscious choice. I was working 100-hour weeks for about a year. coming off of MBA, which were like 80-hour weeks. So my body was done. Yeah.
And you've explained some of the physical symptoms and also some of the kind of mental, emotional to some degree in terms of engagement for work. Was it affecting other areas of your life besides work?
Yeah, I think I was just distracted and I lacked focus. I just felt a general, I don't know if Malay is the right word, but just I wasn't really inspired by anything. And it took me taking a real break from all the things that I was doing and kind of reinvesting in core things that get me back, like exercise, for instance. So,
and maybe just before, because I would love to hear from you a little bit about these things that you kind of use to re-engage and re-energize. But just before getting into that, you mentioned that the launch of Revolution was going on. Were there other things going on in your life that kind of you think could have contributed to reaching kind of that burnout state, except for just the protracted, long hours you were putting in?
I think it wasn't just the long hours. It was that I was constantly thinking. There wasn't a moment that my brain was off. I would work 40 to 50 hours at my day job, which was at my last company, which was growing increasingly stressful. There was, restructure happening, and a lot of the reasons contributed to why I left. And then beyond that, I was working another 50 hours on my startup, which was generally after hours, lots of calls. You're trying to build a business, you're trying to establish a brand, you're trying to get meetings with people, you're trying to get people to buy into an idea. So I think the nature of trying to launch a startup in of itself is intense on its own. And beyond that, I was also planning a wedding. That's the other big thing I was doing.
Small, insignificant detail, planning a wedding.
That actually is pretty emblematic of where I was. I wasn't even really thinking about it. So I was trying to plan a wedding, which was bringing a lot of people from different continents to South Africa. I was also doing my first half Ironman.
Another small, insignificant detail.
So that was, 15 solid hours of exercise and hard exercise a week. There was a lot going on. And I just kept piling it all on and taking it.
That sounds very familiar. So you mentioned how you kind of had to step back and do some more energizing activities, as well as to, just, it sounds to me like taking a break, but I'd love to hear from you a little bit more about what happened.
Yeah, ironically, I think Ironman was probably the best thing I could have done because it forced me to be disciplined about something that took me away from my computer, took me away from my smartphone. When I wasn't thinking about necessarily my next business development thing when I was on my bike. So it gave my brain a necessary break. And exercise has always been a way for me to deal with stress in my life, whether it's yoga or running or triathlon. So that was huge, I think. And because I had to do it, because I had this massive hard race coming up, I couldn't not train. So that was very, very huge. What else did I do? I really took a step away from my startup. Also, coinciding with us launching, about a month and a half after we launched, my co-founder resigned, which was another huge stressful thing I had to think about. How was I going to exit him from the business? How are we going to orchestrate that from like a financial and ownership share point of view, as well as what was I going to do? And it really forced me to evaluate where I was going to go from there and take a step back and say, is this really what I want to be doing? There's one memory that sticks out quite strongly in my mind. It kind of shifted things for me a bit. I think it was maybe, I don't know, I think it was right around the time when I was probably starting to experience burnout, but I wasn't aware. It was late at night. I'd been up till 2 or 3 in the morning. My husband told me to come to bed, or my boyfriend at the time. And I think I just started crying. I was like stressed out. I was exhausted. I didn't feel like I was going to be able to handle everything. And I said something to him. I said, I'm a person who handles her shit. Sorry, I know I'm swearing, but I remember that's what I said. I'm a person who handles her shit. I should be able to handle this. And he looked at me in a very kind way and he said, "Oh, babe, you're the most put together shit I know." But maybe you don't have to do all of these things. And why are you doing it? And I hadn't actually asked myself why, which I think was so important. I was putting all this pressure on myself when it really forced me to step back and be like, is this making me happy? What do I want to be doing? How do I want to be living my life? Do I need to be launching a startup, being on nonprofit boards, doing 18 things? Is that really something that I value? Or is it just something I'm doing because I think I have to be doing it? And I don't think I'd ever really thought about it that way before. It shifted how I was approaching everything, actually, in my life.
Thanks for sharing that. That's those memories are the pivotal ones. They're kind of like the wake up call moments that we all have. Especially, when we break down into tears and we're usually the ones that are put together. It can be pretty shocking for us and for those around us who are not used to seeing it.
Yeah. I think that it's maybe I prided myself on being that person who could take on everything, but we have our limits, and that was a really important lesson for me to learn.
And did you feel any guilt or shame around any of that? Did you have to work through those feelings, or were you kind of good once you decided? You were like, I'm good.
It definitely took some time. I mean, you work so hard for a startup, you invest. I mean, I think between my co-founder and I, we probably spent somewhere like 1,500, 2,000 hours working on our startup over the last year and a half. And it's a lot of time. It's also a lot of money that we put into it. And then it's like, wow, I'm going to step away. I mean, if you're an achievement-driven person, which I am, you feel like you're quitting. And there was guilt associated and kind of like, what am I doing? Like, I've worked so hard. I should just keep pushing. Especially since I think for whether you're a social entrepreneur or a startup entrepreneur or just a business owner, it's very much glamorized, the whole process. Like, you're going to go to all these amazing events and you're going to launch this business and you're going to be innovative, and it's easy, and it's not. It's actually really hard, and most people fail. And I think it would do more for entrepreneurs in the process to ground them in that reality from the start. Like, it's not glamorous. You're going to put a ton of your savings into it, a ton of your time, your relationships will suffer. And I don't think everyone's cut out for it for the long haul. And I had to make peace with where I'm at in my life and what I value, and how I want to be living my life. I don't want to have stress for 10 years in the hopes that maybe I break through at the end of those 10 years. I'd rather live more presently. And so once I got to that point of I'm making a conscious decision to step away from this because it's the best thing for me on a personal level, it made it a lot easier, and those feelings of guilt kind of subsided. I mean, if anything, my co-founder and I still talk, and we both say we would go back, we would do it again, as in the last year. We don't regret doing it, but we would never launch another company. At least not one where we have to create a market.
Yeah.
I'll run a company, but I won't launch one.
While you have a full-time job.
Yes.
Do you think looking back that it was inevitable, or that it's something that if you had tried to do it in a more sustainable way and had kind of, because you mentioned for entrepreneurs and people, launching startups, that, there is a hustle involved, and in part we're not really prepared for it, mentally, for the hustle. But I think, is there an element of we're not prepared for it and how we go about it in terms of our mindset, that, maybe going the hustle route isn't necessarily the right route because, you can burn out, or sustainability will be an issue, and that you can actually do it more slowly and over time and build it up to a point where you can, keep doing it for longer without putting so much, time pressure on yourself?
It's a good question. I mean, I think when I've thought about it a ton, why did we step away? Why has, Weevolution's up, people are using it, yes. Did it have the explosive growth we were hoping for? Were we getting revenue within the first few months like we hoped in our forecast? No. Why is that? I think our approach maybe wasn't right. I think we focused a bit more on a product, and I think maybe my allocation of time, if I could go back, I might distribute it differently. I spent so much time on creating a product and on trying to make that product perfect, which is, you read any startup book, it's everything they advise you not to do. It's like get something lean and mean out there and then see what happens. And I thought I was doing that, but I don't think I was maybe to the extent that was needed. Maybe that perfectionist nature in me, I'm not sure. I also think I worked full time, which because I needed to make an income, because I wanted to launch this and I wasn't prepared to use my entire savings because I'd already used quite a large portion of it to fund build of our product. I think entrepreneurs who are making it move home with their families. A lot of them sell their cars, don't live glamorous lives, aren't going out to eat, and are a part of an incubator, and they really sacrifice a lot. The ones that I've seen make it, or they're also in a market that is ready for their product. So I think maybe we overestimated how fast it would happen, even though it took a year. It took us 6 months to develop our product. And we thought, oh, it'll take 4 months for us to really get into the market. And it got into the market, but the amount of time it takes to actually turn that into something you can charge people for is quite different. I think we underestimated that. Hence why we were just putting in so much upfront. So perhaps if we had had a more measured approach, could have been different. I just think it was such a complex thing. There are so many decisions I might have done differently. If I could have dedicated my entire time to it, I think it might have been quite different, but both me and my co-founder needed to be working. So it's one of those things you try and make do. In an ideal state, I would have only done my startup. Maybe I would have had a different result and not burnt out. Or maybe I would have worked 80 hours a week just on my startup.
Yeah. So, and just knowing you, you're very ambitious, you're very creative, and you really are out to see change happen in the world. Can you see a possibility where you are, spending some time nurturing yourself and focusing a bit more on your well-being and doing a lot of the things that you mentioned that energize you? Can you see how that might lead you to get really excited and pumped about another idea and launch something else, but do it in a way that maybe next time is a bit kinder to you?
Yeah, so one thing that comes up immediately is, I've always known for years when I was in MBA, we had to do a leadership assignment where we had to assess kind of the 12 skills or seeds of a leader, and accountability, authenticity, locus of control, self-care. And self-care was my worst leadership quality. I'm horrible at self-care in general. I was decent or really good at most of the other ones, but I was really not that great. And so I've known this for a while about myself, and experiencing the burnout as I did this last year really brought it to the forefront in my mind. And so, I've been thinking, how can I become more present? How can I slow down? How can I manage my stress in a more effective way? And so this year is really about gaining that balance. So for example, I've started doing like TRE, which is, I actually never remember what the acronym stands for. You probably know.
Yeah, attention and trauma releasing exercises.
Yes, it sounds really heavy, but it's actually fantastic. I find it quite meditative. So I do that on a weekly basis. And then I'm starting yoga training this Friday to become, a yoga teacher, but I'm actually not doing it because I want to teach necessarily. It's more for me to be taking that space to slow down and stay more present. It's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. So yeah, I'm going to finally do it, which I'm excited about. And I think that'll help me kind of balance my stress and balance kind of what I take on, and maybe become more aware of like those early signs. Beyond that, I work now for Quirk, digital company, and we actually own 42 Engines, which is downstairs, which is a startup incubator, which is quite cool. And they've invested in lots of startups. So I've thought, maybe I can start getting involved more in that environment, helping other startups / being on boards for nonprofits. I sit on the board for a UNICEF initiative that's kind of like Revolution on steroids called Cause Tech, kind of connecting different local initiatives that are targeting access needs on the ground in various countries and partner with local organizations. So kind of helping to support that. And and just keeping my eyes open. I don't think, like I said, I doubt I'll ever launch something again. Weevolution is still up, and I'm happy for people to keep using it. And if an opportunity emerges in the future for maybe a market that's more ready for it, I could support that. But for right now, I'm trying to lend my support to causes or initiatives that I believe in, that inspire me, and contribute in that way towards change.
Great. Well, Anne, thanks so much for taking time to connect today and to share your story. In spite of the tech difficulties you had with your laptop, which is funny, because when I think of tech, I think of you. For those watching, be sure to check out the links that I'm going to share in this blog post. I'll share the links for Weevolution if you want to check it out, and also for Quirk if you want to have a look at that. And then feel free to leave a comment below if any of this has resonated with you, and if you have any questions or thoughts you'd like to share. And thanks so much for joining us. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, you too. Good to speak with you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.